Once Al Cap told me it takes two things to become a cartoonist. It helps to have been dropped on your head as a small child, and secondly, you must have no desire, talent, or ability to do anything useful in life.
Contrary to what you see in shows and movies, art isn't made by some quirky guy in a loft in Paris. More often than not, it's made by some guy in his parents' house, on his laptop, slowly spiraling into madness because he can't find a reference for what his favorite VTuber's outfit looks like from the back. Like, why would you make such an intricate outfit without having a character sheet for it, girl? You know how important that— This is to say that the creative process as an indie artist can be a real isolating one. Hunched over a desk, drawing silly pictures isn't exactly conducive to making friends after all. So when the time finally does come where I get the opportunity to bump shoulders with fellow like-minded creatives, it's never the "you're like me" moment of validation I think it's gonna be. Every time I tried tabling at a convention, I'd get cold stares from the people tabling to my right and left of me. I remember when I was setting up for an artist alley, another artist gave me a death stare after I told them I use magnets to hang up my art and my table setup. Like, lady, you're the one that passed by my table and audibly asked her friends, "I wonder how he got his picture to stay up like that." Another time when I was trying to network, the artist f***ing threw my business card over her shoulder, right in my face. I feel like a shallow parody of the club I want to join. It seems like any time I try to fit in, I only prove that I don't belong. In 2016, Hanna-Barbera teamed up with the folks at DC Comics to make the Hanna-Barbera Beyond comics. The Flintstones run from the series, written by Mark Russell and drawn by Steve Pugh, takes a more satirical approach to the typically family sitcom-y formula, using the modern Stone Age family premise as a springboard to reflect and laugh at how ridiculous our own modern society can be. In its first issue alone, the series challenges the expectations and dynamics of the art community through the lens of Mrs. Flintstone herself, Wilma. Being an aspiring artist, she is excited that her pieces have finally been accepted into a gallery, only to be hit with an artist's own worst enemy, themselves. She gets self-conscious about what to wear to the gala, and when she finally does show up, she's disappointed to see her pieces haven't been hung inside alongside the other ones, but outside, directly next to the bathrooms. The only people critiquing her art are openly hostile or dismissive towards it, and even her own husband struggles to find anything positive to say about it. It can be very isolating to feel like an outsider even among a community known for being outsiders. Of course, I can only talk from my own personal experience. I'm sure plenty of other artists have had a good support system both in and out of the community, but like, that was never me. Like, come on, I thought we were all the leftovers of society huddling together found family style, man. Why are you counting me out like that? Of course, I'd be remiss not to acknowledge the plethora of outside factors at play here. Maybe my art's just not as good, I failed to advertise myself properly, or maybe I just chose the wrong venue to sell my stuff at. In a hobby where success is reliant on a lot of luck and risks taken, it's just a bummer that the more controllable factor of the two can still lead to mixed results. And even then, there's still that social aspect to consider. Like it or not, there exists a clear divide in convention artists for no real discernible reason. At least, not one I could verbalize myself.
いかがでしょうか。
あんまりありがとうでした。
Deb Aoki is a manga journalist and well-respected pillar in the Western manga community as a whole. Like, if it were some random person posting hot takes, I'd maybe cheer them on from a private account, but it's her, so I know she, as an authoritative figure, is able to make these observations in a fair, unbiased manner. She shares in her Anime Expo 2024 thread. One problem is that some aspiring manga creators outside of Japan expect to break into the biz based on the playbook they see in manga. But the publishing/talent nurturing ecosystem in the US/Europe is not the same as it is in Japan. One thing that makes me sad about the US manga creator ecosystem is how creators end up spending more time and creative energy making prints and merch to sell an artist alley versus making comics. The Kodansha editors from Japan noticed this difference too and were slightly puzzled by this. Artist alleys in America just aren't conducive to creativity, at least when it comes to creating and selling your own comics, the thing I was kind of banking on them being. Sure, you see a zine every once in a blue moon, and there have been cartoonists able to put a unique enough spin that blends fan art with their own personal tastes that speak to audiences. But if you're gonna get to the nitty-gritty of things, tabling at American anime conventions in these here modern times can be watered down to Genshin, whatever 3 anime are popular that season, and pastel-colored stickers talking about being a plant mom or whatever. And like, yeah, there's a place for those too, but when it becomes the sole driving factor for nearly all of these anime conventions, then you have a problem. Tabling at cons has gotten so impossibly expensive that it's pretty much become a prereq to have a handful of pieces go viral before even deciding to table. Compare that to Japan's Dojin events, where the literal cost of entry is significantly less, and the events are like a day, so there's less pressure to sell and more priority on what you yourself like to make. It's not about the craft anymore, man. High cost to table, hotel and transportation, food for the day. It all adds up to the point that artists have to prioritize merch of viral successes first and all their other creative projects second. Like, when was the last time you saw an artist alley table sell a comic of their OC? It's not that the creativity at conventions has gone down in the past few years, it's that sense that the majority of this creativity is all being used towards the same things.
You'll never be satisfied with a mortal woman because the elf wenches are so beautiful. Wow! You're an idiot!
Similar to the homogenization of artist alleys, so too has the internet become homogenized, limiting us with a handful of social media we endlessly scroll through as our everything channel. For many internet denizens, news, memes, reviews, whatever, is all seen through the platform of a single website. Gone are the days of browsing different websites to be exposed to a vast variety of different who's-its and what's-its galore. Instead of comics, blogs, videos, news, etc., the only thing we get now is content. It's like genuine creative ventures can only exist online when they're crammed through the square hole that is our current social media landscape. Post a hyperlink in your tweet and you better cross your fingers it embeds right, otherwise you gotta play by the formatting rules. Back in 2000, cartoonist and cartoon theorist Scott McCloud introduced the idea of the infinite canvas in the context of posting comics online. He saw the internet less as a screen and more as a window that you can zoom in and out of, or even scroll through in any which direction you please, allowing for more experimentation in the realm of internet art and comics. And in some ways, McCloud's observations have come true in the form of webtoons. More often than not, modern internet comics are formatted for the endless scroll, but in that same breath, it is in this innovation that new limitations are born. Suddenly, endless scrolling has become the only way to read comics online, with anything even slightly too wide for reading in portrait mode on a phone just not being worth the hassle. Dude, they reformatted Gurihiro and Yang's Avatar comics just so they read better on a phone. This is just pan and scanning movies all over again. But I think the biggest downside to the modern webcomics landscape has to be the platforms themselves. When it comes to indie comics, the big two players on the scene are Tapas and Webtoons. And while both are very quick to boast how their website's made for the little guy to get their comics out there to a bigger audience, it's clear that it is solely in name at this point. Like, don't say you're an indie platform, darling, when you're publishing BTS comics, you damn hypocrite. Don't go posting job listings to hire translation and sensitivity reading staff for your platform exclusives while barely giving the indie teams of one the time of day. At this point, both websites have essentially gone the way of YouTube, where maybe they were a good indie platform back in the day, but production values for creatives have risen so much that the true indies living off a spaghetti nib tablet pen and a dream are just left to figure it out because the alternative of developing a large production team on their end just isn't feasible. Even their upload rules are a fucking joke. The system will automatically slice and reduce images that exceed the maximum dimensions. I thought the endless scroll model meant we were over these limitations already, and yet it seems like they're doubling down on making sure they support creativity, but only if it's their brand of creativity. And I haven't even gotten into AI yet. Actually, I kinda don't want to get into AI. For some reason, talking about AI online is on par with talking about politics online. The discourse is either people incredibly for it, against it, or people not in the know seeing the discourse and being too afraid to take either side. We're past the point of educating the masses on it because most everyone's minds have been made up, and the split between those for and against is inexplicably pretty even. Even if I were to ignore all the ethical, environmental, and all-around scumbag bastard shittiness rightfully associated with AI, I'd still have to be against it for the simple reason that I'm an artist, and seeing people actively steal from artists to benefit their own bottom line is, bad. It's bad. Like, I don't know how else to tell you that infringing on the creativity and livelihood of a human being all so you can teach your new Neopet how to steal harder is morally wrong. And yet, just the mere mentioning of AI brings about all these devil's advocate charlatans and hucksters. Like, shoo, bro, I don't want to deal with you. This on top of further muddying the conversation by having AI refer to like 3 unrelated things, and you have the perfect recipe for a shit show. If you even want to delve into the discourse surrounding AI, you gotta clarify and say that you're not talking about AI in a video gamey sense sense or a healthcare sense. We're talking about the absolute destruction of creativity as we know its sense. It's all very exhausting, and yet if you don't at least acknowledge it, you come off like you're ignoring the problem that will only get worse the better the technology gets. You see this in how slow countries have been to rolling out laws to try and keep it in check. Like, dude, if my own government can't reel in AI, how am I, some guy that sometimes posts drawings and comics online, supposed to stay creative in this hellscape? You know that feeling you get when you know you've got an absolute banger tweet on your hands but no one even acknowledges it exists? Yeah, imagine that, but the time it took to make the tweet is stretched out over the course of multiple months, and you basically have the artist experience. I've spent the last 5 years slowly chipping away at my own webcomic, Bob and Weave. Each issue would usually take 1 to 3 months, and I'd feel really creatively energized just making each chapter, only to post it and see it dead on arrival. The lack of validation just feeding into my exhaustion and justification in large breaks between issues. Eventually I'd muster enough energy to start the next chapter, and rinse and repeat. The creative process is such a time investment behind the scenes, and yet all people ever see is the second it's posted, if that. How is it that we exist in a time where creativity is both at an all-time high and an all-time low? Where anyone can make anything and immediately share it to the world, and yet that same privilege has, in turn, limited people's sense for art. So much so that they're relying on machines to be creative for them. It all just begs the question, why? Why make art? It makes no money, people think you're a weirdo for doing it, it's in the process of getting colonized by tech bros, like, why do any of it? In July 2021, Tatsuki Fujimoto released his one-shot manga Look Back, about aspiring manga artists Fujino and Kyomoto. Both students make comics for their school newspaper, and yet due to outside circumstances, they never meet face to face. Artists essentially growing up in separate bubbles. Being at school, Fujino is able to receive first-hand reactions from her peers as they read her comic at school. Meanwhile, Kyomoto, as a shut-in, is able to read both comics free from any outside influence. The second Kyomoto's comic begins getting published alongside Fujino's in the paper, the rest of the class inevitably begins comparing the two, to the chagrin of Fujino, who just isn't able to up her art game to the level of Kyomoto's, no matter how hard she tries. So when we're treated to a multi-year leveling up montage, and the following page we see is Fujino's latest comic that shows little improvement to her style, we feel that. Just as we feel for when the two artists finally meet each other face to face, and Kyomoto absolutely fangirls over being able to meet who to her is her art hero. While Fujino's opinion of her art was molded by her peers, Kyomoto's was molded solely by her own personal interaction with the art. After following Fujino's anxieties as an artist and her struggle with gaining the approval of her peers, we finally see Kyomoto's side of the story. An artist praising another artist, and the two seeking solace in the other's own creative spirit. I'm not gonna pretend like I have some cure-all solution to the current state of art and artists. It's difficult to remedy a situation when you're in the middle of living it. The system is so flawed in so many incomprehensible ways that this video barely even scratches the surface of my frustrations with it. But when the system is flawed, you shouldn't hesitate to retreat inwards, seeking solace in your own accomplishments. I've worked on Bob and Weave for a total of 13 chapters, that 13th one being its final chapter. And while it's still met with radio silence, having at least finished the entirety of the story I intended to make does feel validating in its own right. Regardless of its quality or popularity, I can at least say that I persevered through any apathy and self-doubts to make good on what I promised, if not to any audience, then at least to myself. This entire vision for a world and story all my own that was originally only in my head has now been fully extracted and put out there for anyone that happens to pass by it. And that therein lies the true message of the plight of the artist. We do not do this thing because we are permitted. We do it because we have to. We do it because we are compelled. Did I really just fucking quote Watchmen?